Hey creatives, and welcome to my channel. Today we're doubling the fun with two easy seamless patterns, a bold geometric chevron and a crisp chopped diagonal stripe. I'll walk you through setting up the template, the layer stack and a colour swap trick so you finish with both tiles ready for fabric, print on demand or your next phone wallpaper. So if that sounds good, grab your Apple Pencil and let's dive in. So let's set up our canvas settings. Tap the plus icon and tap the new canvas icon. Here we will set our dimensions. I am setting mine in inches and making it a 12 by 12. And check that the DPI is set to 300. Next, tap the Colour Profile tab. If you're going to be printing your designs in any way on a product, fabric, you want to have it set to CMYK. And if your pattern will be intended for a screen of any kind, then you want to select an RGB colour profile. When you've done this, tap Create. Now we're inside our project. Tap the layer icon to open up the layers panel. Tap the layer and rename it to background. And press enter. Then tap the colour button and choose a colour for the background. Open the Layers panel, tap the background layer and select Fill Layer. Tap the colour button again and select a colour for your pattern tile. Go back to the Layers panel and add a new layer. Tap and rename this one to Pattern. Tap it again and select Fill Layer. Now tap the Transform tool and tap the snapping icon. Make sure that magnetics and snapping are on and check that the distance and velocity are set to max. Tap snapping again to close this setting and select Distort. Now from the top left corner point, drag it and snap it to the top center point. Use the guidelines to check this. Now drag the bottom right corner and snap it to the bottom center point. Then select Uniform. And tap the Transform tool to deselect the layer. Open the Layers panel and duplicate the layer twice. To do this, swipe left on the layer and select Duplicate. Repeat one more time. We now have 3 diagonal shape layers. Swipe right on the 2 remaining diagonal layers and tap the Transform tool. And tap Rotate 45 degrees twice. And deselect the layers. Open the Layers panel and select the top layer only. Tap the Transform tool and select Flip Horizontal. Then deselect it. Open the Layers panel. Now to make things easier to see, let's hide the first diagonal layer. To do this, tap the Visibility checkbox at the side of the bottom diagonal layer. This will uncheck it and hide the layer. This way it's easier to see what's going on. Now, with the top layer still selected, tap the Transform tool. Check that it's set to uniform if you haven't already, and scale it down to the bottom left quadrant. Deselect the layer, open the Layers panel and select the next visible layer. Go back to the Transform tool and scale it down to the bottom right quarter. And deselect the layer. Now if we go back to the Layers panel, we can merge these two layers together. So tap the Layers icon and you can pinch the two layers together to merge them. If that's a bit tricky, a guaranteed way to merge or flatten the layers is to group them. You can group them by having one selected and swiping right on the layer you want to add to the selection. Tap Group, double tap New Group and select Flatten. We now have our first chevron shape. Duplicate this layer, tap the Transform tool and drag and snap the layer to the top half of the canvas. And deselect it. Open the Layers panel and merge the two chevrons together. We're going to duplicate this layer twice. And hide the first one. This tile will be the first of a group of chevron pattern tiles in various scales, saving you time later. We want to have the top chevron selected, then tap the Transform tool and scale it down to the bottom left quarter until it snaps perfectly into place. Deselect it, go back to the Layers panel and select the next visible chevron layer. Tap the Transform tool and scale it down to the bottom right quarter and deselect it. Open the Layers panel and merge the two layers together. Duplicate the layer, tap the Transform tool and drag the layer up until it snaps into the top half perfectly and deselect it. Open the Layers panel and merge the two layers together. Duplicate it twice, hide the first one and tap, hold and drag it onto the first chevron tile. When you see the blue borderline, release the layer. These layers have now formed a group, which we will rename. So double tap New Group and rename it to Chevron Scales. Then collapse the group and hide it. Now select the top visible layer, tap the Transform tool and scale it down to the bottom left quarter, then deselect it. Go back to the Layers panel, select the next visible chevron layer and scale it down to the bottom right quarter and deselect it. Open the Layers panel and merge the two layers. Duplicate the flattened layer, go back to the Transform tool and drag it up to the top half until it snaps perfectly. Deselect it, then go back to your layers and merge these two together. Duplicate it twice, hide the first layer, then tap, hold and drag it into the Chevron Scales group. If you would like smaller scales of the pattern, you can continue this process as many times as you like. Once you've completed your tile, hide it and add it to the chevron scales group. We will return to this group shortly, but if you just want to continue on with the chevron pattern, just check the timestamps within the description box. But for now, we will create the second pattern, which is our chopped diagonal stripe. So now let's duplicate the diagonal shape layer twice. Then make these two layers visible. And like before, we follow the same steps we did previously. So have the top diagonal layer selected and tap the transform tool. And scale it down to the bottom left quarter until it snaps perfectly. And deselect it. Go back to the layers panel and select the next visible diagonal layer. Tap the transform tool and scale it down to the bottom right quarter and deselect it. Open the layers panel and merge the two layers together. Duplicate the layer, tap the transform tool and drag the layer to the top until it snaps perfectly. And deselect it. Open the layers panel and merge the two layers together. Duplicate it twice. Hide the first one and tap, hold and drag it on to the first diagonal shape layer. And rename the group to Diagonal Scales. This group will contain all our diagonal pattern tiles. Then collapse it and hide the group. Now have the top visible diagonal pattern layer selected and tap the transform tool. Now scale it down to the bottom left quarter and deselect it. Go back to the layers panel, select the next visible diagonal layer. Go back to the transform tool and scale it down to the bottom right quarter and deselect it. Open the layers panel and merge the two layers. Duplicate it and go back to the transform tool and drag it up until it snaps perfectly and deselect it. Then go back to your layers panel and merge these two layers together. Then duplicate it twice. And like before, hide the first one and drag it into the diagonal scales group. And with the two visible diagonal tiles, we will repeat the scale down and merging process again. Once you've done that and merged your tile, hide it, then tap, hold and drag it into the diagonal scales group. And as before, you can continue this exact same process as many times as you need. Now we will create a template that we can use for any of these pattern tiles we have created. And the benefit of a template is that you can create many colour variations time and time again without having to do the whole pattern creating process from scratch. So let's make our template. So with the background layer we made earlier, tap, hold and drag it above and outside of the top scales group. Now we need to add a tile from one of our scale groups. So whether you want to work with a chevron or a diagonal pattern tile, the process is exactly the same. So first, you'll need to open the relevant group. For this part, I'm going to work with a chevron tile. Duplicate the tile you want to use. As a side note, it's always better to duplicate your pattern tile before you tweak it, so that you always have a copy without having to make it all again. Tap, hold, and drag it on top of the background layer. Make the layer visible and add a new layer. Tap it and select Clipping Mask. And tap it again and rename it Colour. You can add any colour to this layer. Do this as many times as needed between saving your image file. The clipping mask method is a non-destructible way to make as many colour variations as you want, easily and effortlessly. Now let's group these 3 layers by opening the Layers panel and swipe right on the 2 remaining layers. Tap Group, double tap New Group and rename it Template. You can make a separate template for each pattern, but this method allows you to duplicate any of your tiles and simply add them to this template. And that's a wrap. If you followed along, great work. You now have 2 seamless pattern tiles plus the template ready to reuse whenever you like. If you have an idea for another pattern, drop it in the comments. If I can draw it, I might just film it. Ready for more pattern making? Check out my playlist of quick pattern wins. Links are on the screen and I hope to see you over there. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. And until the next one, take care and bye for now.